Okay, it's late on Friday, October 10th, and I want to talk through some more of the training material from the Nonviolent Resistance Bootcamp that I went to a week ago. I got my shirt on from it. What? Resistance Bootcamp. Okay, so last time I promised that I would talk through more of the roles that people can fill during discrete, nonviolent direct actions or in the greater movement as a whole. I just want to mention here really quickly that in the last couple of videos, I mentioned there was an Act Blue link and encouraged folks to throw a couple of bucks at it to help defray the cost of the training that I went to and the material that I'm sharing here. Also to fund future trainings like this one. And I just want to say, y'all, I heard late yesterday that y'all donated almost $4,000 in just a couple of days. And that not only made it so that the volunteer organizers of that event didn't have to pay for the expenses of that training out of their own pocket, but it already is seeding funds to have another one of these trainings, right? So this last training, there were 200 of us in attendance. And I know my DMs and I know our local Indivisible groups are getting slammed with people who are like, where can we do this training? How can we host this again? How can we better equip people with the skills that are necessary to effectively and non-violently resist? So I'm trying to cover as much of the material as I feel qualified to cover over a long series of videos, but y'all, I'm barely even scratching the surface. There is so much in this training that I hope that we are able to have another one of these very soon. And I hope that it can kind of grow organically, right? People attend trainings, they take all of the material that they learned there and they go back to their local grassroots groups and they help educate people right where they live so that we are all stronger, right? We all have to get real skillful, real educated, and real savvy real quick. And speaking of we all, there are roles that everybody can fill, right? Not everybody is meant to be a protester down at the ICE facility. Not everybody is willing to engage in civil disobedience and knowingly, willingly get arrested. Not everybody is going to be like Pastor Black in Chicago and so many of our other brave protesters who know that they are going to get brutalized, shot in the head with rubber bullets, maced in the face simply for exercising their protected constitutional rights to stand up and speak against the horrible, brutal things that the government is doing to our immigrant neighbors. There's so many other roles that people can fill. And I just want to say, everybody who donated to that Act Blue link, you took up one of those roles, right? Financial support is a hugely important component of any resistance movement. There are loads of people who might not physically be able to engage in some of the more risky activities. There are people who maybe are caregivers for children or their elderly relatives, and they cannot risk getting injured by ICE or arrested. But they sure as hell can donate to bail funds. They sure as hell can help fund things like gas mask filters, supply kits for medics at protests, fund training events like the one that I just went to. Okay, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So I'm going to go through the volunteer roles that are available for nonviolent direct action or within a greater nonviolent resistance movement. In my last video, I talked a lot about strategic frameworks, and I know some of this can sound a little bit dry, like, oh, Angela, it's just like, it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of like self-control. It's a lot of talking through scenarios. And yeah, I know that can seem a little bit dry, and right, you're like, how do we get on the front lines and defend democracy? This is how you defend democracy. Unfortunately, logistics and strategic framework, that's a big part of it. You don't walk into a battle without battle plans. You don't walk into a battle without training your soldiers. I hate to use militaristic imagery and symbolism. Maybe we could say you don't show up to defend your client in a court of law without having deposed witnesses and, well, first of all, without having gone to law school, and then without having deposed the witnesses and without having built your case. You don't just walk in and wing it, right? So let's talk through some of the much needed roles within a resistance movement. And maybe one or two or more of them will jump out at you. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds like something that I might be good at. Obviously, right off the bat, organizers, co-leads, and coordinators. Every nonviolent direct action begins with organizers, right? These are people who set the goals up for the discrete action itself. They develop the game plan, and they make the strategic choices about time, place, and messaging. Remember, when we're talking about discrete direct actions, there has to be a goal, and you have to understand that it is very much theater. It's very much about storytelling. It's very much a PR game. So when you're looking at those leaders, they are crafting the message and they are making sure that they are planning out the time and place and what that event is going to look like and who they need to bring on board. I'm somebody who in general is like really opposed to a hierarchy and I really like consensus, but I think within this framework, it's important to understand that you need somebody who, or a small group of like 3 people, right, who are the leaders, who make the decisions, and you know the buck stops with them. You know you can look to them for the kind of definitive answers that your group needs. Part of the reason that you need that is because we are working on a tight timeline, right? This is not like your eco-village meeting where everybody is going to spend hours and hours mulling through issues until we can come to consensus. No, we got to get shit done here. Now, I want to read this part directly from our notes because I think it's really important. Typically, in the context of community practice, such as nonviolent resistance movements, leaders may first emerge organically, but may then sometimes require intentional development. This phenomenon derives from the nature of power in group dynamics and the inclination of thoughtful participants to defer to already proven or accepted leaders. But effective group organizers understand that the ranks of leaders must grow within the movement. In order to facilitate that growth, they will seek, identify, and elevate individuals who demonstrate leadership skills by modeling healthy social participation, thinking strategically about the group, non-violent discipline, right? And long-term campaigns. And they can communicate their ideas effectively and inspire others. We are a growing movement, so we need more and more leaders. We need more leaders. Those leaders often arise organically. We're not a cult here. We don't have just like one person running the show. And people will naturally rise up into leadership because they have those qualities. But that doesn't mean that they're just like on their own. We should be supporting those people in their growth and development and gaining skills so they can be more effective in their leadership roles. Okay, next group are the marshals and the safety team. This is one of the roles I fill in this movement, right? So we get training in crowd control. We help direct traffic. Remember, in nonviolence, we are always prioritizing safety for other people in the group and for people who come to our events. Safety marshals serve as the eyes and ears of the organizers. They report critical information back to the co-leads. They often create a buffer between law enforcement and the group and between counter-protesters and the group. Safety marshals are easily identifiable either with armbands or vests. They have extensive training in de-escalation and crowd control, and a high prioritization of safety. The next group are the medics, first aid volunteers, and also emotional and trauma support folks. That can be therapists, counselors, clergy. They are there to render physical, emotional, and spiritual first aid. The next role is legal observer and documentarian. You need somebody who is there, who is photographing counter-protesters, photographing and filming law enforcement. You need somebody on the ground documenting, and whenever possible, partner with your local legal organizations, the National Lawyers Guild, your local ACLU chapter, and get legal observers at your events. They often wear a purple vest. Something very clearly should say legal observer, and they should be documenting. Just like your medics and your safety marshals, your legal observers need to have their head on a swivel. They prioritize situational awareness. Next, we have public relations. This is your comms team. This is your media liaisons. In a nonviolent resistance movement, it is a PR game. We are telling a story and we have to have an audience to tell that story too. So we need comms people who are able to effectively help get that message out to the public, and we need to have developed relationships with the press. And also with like new media and influencers as well. Also encourage the comms team to partner with local artists whenever possible when you are looking to put together materials for your group, advertisements, etc. And lastly, whether you take on one of those roles that I just mentioned or you consider yourself a general participant, we all have to prioritize working safely together. We all have to model nonviolent discipline to each other. We have to show respect for each other's space and limitations. We all need to remind each other on the day of events that we don't run in a crowd. You never run at a protest. We all have an obligation to maintain situational awareness at events, and we all have an obligation to learn healthy communication skills, and that includes de-escalation skills. Speaking of which, in the next video, I want to talk about some de-escalation techniques where you can go to get more extensive de-escalation training. And after that, we're going to talk a little bit more about civil disobedience and things like bail funds, what it looks like to engage in nonviolent resistance where you choose to get arrested. Please come back because I got lots more to talk about.